Hey there, welcome back friends. In this video we will talk more about attributes. Now friends, we have already seen the variables which are just inside class and outside any method is known as attributes. To be very specific, these are class object attributes which can be accessed directly. So let us talk about it. So in here, for example, we create a object, for example h1 equals hello, and we pass on the attribute as 1 comma 2. Let me run this. Now in here we have this object h1, and h1 is an independent entity. Likewise, we can create a yet another object, maybe h2, and we give the attribute as 5 and 22, for example. Now if I type in h1 dot x, it will give me 10. If I call in h2 dot x, again the value will be same, because whenever we create an object of this class, this value x will be created by default. Now this means that this is constant. Well, this is not constant because we can reassign the value. For example, I can type in h2 dot 20. I run this and I try to access h2 dot x. It will give me 20, but this doesn't mean that the value inside the h1 object will change. This will remain the same. Let me show you. Now when it comes to objects, object will have different memory location. For example, in here if I type in h1 and run this, it will give me this memory location. If I type in h2, then this will have some different memory location, right? So the memory location of the objects are different. Take a note of it. As a result, whenever we update the attributes, the class level attributes, then definitely the effect of the class level attribute will be for that object only. So in here, if I say h2 dot x equals 20, then x variable, x attribute of h2 object will be updated only. h1 will not have any effect. So that is one thing. Now moving forward, let me do one thing. Let me copy this entire declaration and paste it in here. Let me run this. Alright, so in here it could be confusing where we have this variable y and z and self dot y and z. That this could be little confusing why we are assigning the value of y and z in here. The reason being, when we say for example h3 equals hello world, and in here we pass on the value, for example 50 comma 100. So these two values are passed, right? So these two values will be assigned to y and z, but there is a local copy of y and z, and these are known as attributes. Now friends, these attributes y and z are what? These are also class attributes, but these needs to be initialized, right? So these are inside the constructor, inside the init method. Alright, now moving forward, in here we have 50 and 100. Now indeed what we can do, what I am saying that this y and z are local variable, whereas this y and z are parameters, the arguments which we are receiving. But for example, in here I can say y1, z1. In here I can say y1 and z1. Now take a note of it that even though we make use of some different variable, again our method will run and there is no issue, right? But when we will access the values, then this local name would be used. Let me show you. So if I say h3 dot, take a note of the suggestion. It's x, y and z. X is this variable, y is this variable, and z is this variable. And all these three variables are what? These are attributes. These are not parameters. So that is the reason why in here, in order to distinguish between the local y or local attribute, and the parameter we have the self word, self keyword. Indeed, this is not a keyword, this is a special attribute, special parameter to this init method. Alright, so let me undo the changes. And indeed, when it comes to Python programming, you would be able to see this self word, self attribute very often. Alright, so using this self attribute, we can assign, we can specify that this y, this z is nothing but the local attribute. Alright, so this could be a little confusing, but when you will grow old in Python, things will be very clear later down the line. Alright, now moving forward, let us create a yet another method. It would be like define display x, y, z, and in here we will simply print x. Let me copy this, let me paste it in here, and we will display y and z. Alright, let me run this, let me run this line as well, and now we have this method. Can we run this? Well, let me show you what happens when we will run this. And let me run this, and there would be a issue. For example, I comment out these two lines where we are trying to display y and z. Can we run the method then? Let me run this, let me run this, let me run this line. Again, this will give us an error. Now friends, here comes the self keyword handy. Whenever we would like to access the attributes of the class, we must make use of this self keyword. For example, we pass on self in here, and then let me get rid of this comment, and then I type in self.x, self.y, and self.z, and then try to rerun this class again. Let me initialize the h3 object, and finally let us call in the display xyz method, and now we get the output. So now we can easily make out that how important is the self. Now this self, or the mechanism of associating attributes to the variable, or associating the attributes which will make this available for call, is something which is automated in many programming language, but when it comes to Python, it is manual, and it is kind of good as well, because we understand how exactly it works, and this is how we can associate and call in the attributes. So this is how we can call in the attributes, and take a note of this as self. What we say, it is not keyword. In fact, it is in fact I can give yet another different name, like some other self in here, and I can make use of this in here, and I can run this again. This will work. In fact, I can use any name in here. So indeed, this is not a keyword, but this is the way how Python handles. And how exactly it handles is that the first parameter, first argument which is given to this init method, or to this what we say method inside the class, will be considered the special parameter, a special argument, and using this argument we can access the attribute inside the class. Now that is the reason why method and functions are little different. When it comes to method, there is this special functionality of assigning a special argument, giving a special parameter, but when it comes to function, function is very simple, we simply call it, right? So whenever there is a function inside a class, it is known as method, but whenever we call in a method, it is known as a simple function. Alright, so yes, I can understand that this could be a little confusing, but later down the line, when we will grow old, this will be very easy and convenient for you, or it would be something which will be usual for you. Alright, so having said that, this is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.